Giving up once they feel some relief. This is the most common one. So people go to therapy, to coaching all over the world, and they go in for some sessions. They're in a real state of panic, really stuck. And after a couple of sessions, or maybe after a few months, or maybe after a few years, they get better and they feel relief and they're able to function and live life again. Once they get to that stage, what normally happens is they think, well, this is as good as it's going to get. I'm happy with this. I'm going to leave it there. And they end up just leaving it at that position. And this is a terrible shame, because they were so close to moving to recovery, but because they get to a certain point and then they think, I can function here, this is enough, I don't want to do any more work on it, I don't want to waste any more time to OCD. That's a common thought. I don't want to waste any more of my life or time to OCD. They get to that point and they stop. And that is a real shame, because that is where they've then got the energy to learn and do the work now that they're out of that crisis point to move forward. That is one of the main things that happens. Second thing is scared to have a session with their therapist because they're scared of getting stuck again or making it worse, digging down into it. And they feel like, now that I'm feeling good, I don't want to think of anything to do with OCD. I don't want to even touch on that subject. And they're trying to avoid that. And that avoidance then is what sets up another crisis point, because by avoiding, they're then leaving themselves vulnerable to getting caught again. You don't want to avoid. Say, look at me, for example, in what I do here is I'm hearing every single thought, all different people's thoughts all day long. I'm around OCD all day long. I'm recovered. It doesn't make any difference if I hear the scariest thoughts or I'm around it for as many hours as possible. It doesn't make any difference, because it doesn't scare me. My relationship with the thoughts or the content of the thoughts or anything. So that's why it doesn't get a grip. So I'm facing it all the time. It doesn't make a difference. Another one is jumping therapist to therapist, going from one therapist to the next, expecting a miracle result. So going in there, hearing something, if you haven't heard everything that you want to hear, or you feel better, or you test and think, am I feeling better? Or is that similar to what I've already heard before, jumping ship to the next therapist and the next and the next. So it's like if you set up a business. I mean, the reason most businesses fail, or why it never happen, is because people have good ideas, there are a million of. There's so many people have a good business idea, but it's the execution. And that's exactly the same with OCD recovery, in the sense that if you go from therapist to therapist, like, oh, okay, I'll try that, oh, I'll listen to those ideas, try that briefly, and then I'll jump to this one, try that briefly. It's like setting up 1,000 different businesses. They're not going to work. You need to concentrate on learning the things that you're learning, giving it time with each person, going for one session, seeing if you're suddenly better or if everything clicks. That is not the attitude to go with. It's so commonly done, but it's not the answer. And it's a reason that people then lose a lot of hope, because they've never sat it out long enough to see. But at the same time, don't sit it out with somebody who's not getting you anywhere. If you're sitting with someone and you've noticed no improvement, no change in knowledge, no anything, you need to get a second opinion straight away, because that's far too commonly done. Sitting with a therapist who's not making improvements with you, and you end up just sitting through it because you think, well, maybe they're probably right, I'm probably not. I'll just carry on with them and see how it goes, and I'll eventually get there. Well, 90% of people treating OCD haven't got the tools to get the person fully better. So unless they've got those tools, most of the time you're going to miss out. So it's very, very important to get a second opinion. Exposures. Another super common one is when you get to an exposure where you'll get to a point in the road where the only way forward is by doing that exposure. Now, if you don't do that exposure, there'll be one particular exposure, let's say, for example, HIV fear. And you'll get to a point where you might have watched loads of documentaries on HIV, you might have read loads of things about it, exposed yourself in every other way. And the exposure that's needed is like to go to a STD clinic, or to pick up some brochures that people have been touching in the hospital that say HIV advice on, things like that. There comes a point where those exposures are absolutely crucial, where that is the stepping stone to getting you better. Now, there's so many of those. Contamination OCD, there is no other way around contamination OCD apart from putting yourself in the position of getting a bit dirty, touching the things you don't want to touch, the bin, inside the bin, all that kind of stuff. And you will come to a point where that is what needs doing. And people beg all the time with me, oh, is there any other way? Can I read a book? No, that is what has to be done at some point. That is what's holding you back. And you have to look at your life and take a deep look at it and go, this is holding my life back. This is stopping me living. This is not the life I'd want to live. I can't let this take my life. Do not get stuck in the comfort trap of staying behind that illusionary fear wall.